Hari Hari. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Jnana Tamirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we're continuing our study of Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 3. In the last section we studied, Krishna is giving an argument for why even an enlightened person works in this world. For an enlightened person, there is no requirement to do anything in this world because they're experiencing self-satisfaction. For those who are not experiencing self-satisfaction like ourselves, we have many desires that we want to fulfill. So those desires cause us to move around the world. And we work hard, isn't it? Just like you may be hungry, you start moving, isn't it? Towards the refrigerator. People are hungry for sex life. They're hungry for fame. They're hungry for different things, and so they start moving in the world, isn't it? So for those who are not experiencing the satisfaction of the self, there's many things to do. And of course, all those things are being done for happiness. But the enlightened person, he is experiencing the happiness of the self, Atmarati, Atmaneva Santushta. These different terms were used. So there is no obligation for him to do anything in the world. He can sit down and be happy. That is not possible for us. Even when we sit down to chant japa, we get disturbed immediately. Immediately there's disturbance that we start having to move around. So the self-satisfied person, there's no obligation to work. But Krishna says for this enlightened person, he is also doing work. For what reason? Anyway, in short, loka sangraha, to benefit the world. For this reason, an enlightened person will also do work. So then Krishna concludes this section by saying, so the enlightened person, he works without attachment. And the unenlightened person, he works with attachment. This is the difference between the two. So both the enlightened person is working in the world, and the unenlightened person, they are also working in the world. But what is the difference? Those who are unenlightened work with attachment, and those who are enlightened work without the attachment. Right? This is the difference. So Krishna encourages Arjuna in this way. You work. You're an enlightened person also, but you should work in this world without attachment. So what is the knowledge of that enlightened person? What is his enlightenment? What is that knowledge that allows a person to work without attachment? Obviously, there's a certain level of ignorance that makes us work with so many attachments, isn't it? So what is that enlightenment? What is that knowledge by which a person is able to work without attachment? So when we're working with attachment, we're attached to what? We're attached usually to two things. We're attached to the result of the activity that we're doing. And because we're attached to the result, we want to control the atmosphere, control how the result is coming. These are the two things that we're attached to. This is what causes most disturbance. Once you're attached to the result, then you're attached to a certain outcome. You want to control the environment that allows you to get that outcome. Just like recently, I've been reading an article of the Unabomber. I forgot to send it to you. So he's a very brilliant person in the conventional sense. He has an IQ of 167, and genius level IQ is considered 135. So he has IQ of 167. So a very brilliant person. And he's very much against technology, the advancement of technology, because it's destroying the world as he sees it. And so he was attached to a particular outcome, that there should be no technology, no technologists developing this harmful technology. But he's just one little fellow, a smart fellow, but one little fellow without much influence. He was just some professor in some small space teaching something. No one cares about him. So because he was attached to that outcome, what did he start doing? He started bombing people. Even though he's a very intelligent person, he went out to the forest, started making bombs, and he was sending it to technologists. So it wasn't that he was randomly killing people. He was sending to technologists and then blowing them up. So it's a little dramatic. But for me, when I was reading about that, it shows how he was wanting to control the outcome. But his power, his influence was very limited. So how much control did he have? So he took to. So what is the enlightenment of the person that allows them to work without the attachment? So this Christian is bringing up in this next series of verses that we'll be looking at. Starting with verse number 327. This is actually a very famous verse. Here where Krishna says, this concept that I am the doer of activity and that I can control the outcome by my various actions. He says, this is the consciousness of ego. This is egotism. This is a very famous verse. We'll look at it. Pakritihi kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. Ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. So Pakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. So it says all activities in this world are done by the gunas of material nature. So we've heard this word earlier, the gunas. Basically, everything in this world is a composition of the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So when these modes, they combine and recombine and recombine, they create all the psychological and physical variety that we see. So our body is a composition of certain modes of nature. Our thoughts are a composition of certain modes of nature. The computers and the buildings that the environment that we're experiencing, they're all a combination of the different modes of material nature. So everything you see happening in this world is being compelled by these different gunas of nature. Krishna says this. So all activity is being done by Prakriti in the form of these gunas. It is actually the gunas that are moving. Ahankara vimudatma, but the soul, due to ahankar, due to the false ego, he thinks, kartaham iti manyate. He is thinking, I am the doer. He does not appreciate that there are actually material forces that are actually moving the environment. And so he thinks that he's doing everything. Just like sometimes, I gave this example many times, I think it's a good example. But when we were watching the sports growing up, Chicago Bulls. So if Jordan shot a three, at the last minute, he felt like I shot the three by identifying with Michael Jordan. And sometimes, even as kids, you would even sometimes in their head, and they imagine themselves to be that person. But actually, they're a different person, and that Michael Jordan is another person. So you can think, I'm... Sometimes you can see. I see sometimes in the street when I go to Thompson Square Park. So some little kid is there. He doesn't have even basketball. And he's thinking, I am Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is one person. He is another person. They're two different persons. And Michael Jordan is doing something by his own energy, and you're just observing that. And somehow you identify with Michael Jordan, and you're thinking that I am doing it. His victory is your victory. His loss is your loss. And I experienced that when I was into basketball as a kid. When the Bulls would lose, I would be devastated for 2 days. You just said, what is the purpose of life? That's how you start asking the existential questions. So Krishna says, all this is ahankara vimudatma. The atma is bewildered by ego. Because actually what is happening in this material world is being done by material forces. The material forces are the gunas of nature. And the soul is different from those gunas. So another example is given just like when these kids nowadays, they play the video games. So they have what is called as the video game avatar. They use this word avatar to describe the character in the game, right? They use the word avatar. So you have this avatar. It could be a demon avatar. Usually you like to go for these things, the demons. And it's interesting now. No one wants to be like a godly person in the video game. They want to be demons. Even when I used to play one video game, Mortal Kombat, a very famous one, Mortal Kombat, I was always into like Quan Chi, like all the criminal characters were always the coolest one. So you choose your avatar, and in that avatar is doing so many things in the game, and that game is moving by virtual forces. You're outside those virtual forces. You're living in this world, and that's the virtual world. And your avatar is existing inside the virtual world, and everything that's happening in that virtual world is happening by virtual forces, and you're existing separate from that. That is another example. And if you come to think, I come to think I identify with my avatar, and I think I am doing, you're not doing anything. Everything that is happening in that virtual world is happening by virtual forces, and your existence is outside. So if you think that you are doing all those, 9-hit combo, you should do these little combos, 9-hit combo, like, yeah, I did it. It's another one was Killer Instinct. Look, the names of the games themselves are indicative of the horrible culture we live in now. But this game, Killer Instinct, was another one of my favorite ones. And I used to like to play with the character called Orchid, I think, of woman character, because I knew how to do a 22-hit combo with her. And then when I would do a 22-hit combo, I used to feel ecstatic. I have done a 22. No, you've not done anything. That is happening in the virtual world. And you are separate from that. So if you think that you are doing that, then you are a fool. The soul is thinking, I am the doer of this. And therefore, Krishna says, such a soul is bewildered by false ego. Because actually, all of these things are taking place by virtual forces, the forces of the gunas, the material nature. So even when you're moving your body around in this world, it very much feels like we are moving things, we are doing things. And especially when we get attached to some outcome, we start trying to control things, manipulate people, manipulate the environment to get a certain goal. You think, yes, I am doing. Actually, that's happening by some other force that is taking place, forces that you cannot perceive, forces of karma, forces of the material energy are coming. Just like every day you wake up, have you ever had a morning where you wake up and you thought to yourself, may I suffer today? Anyone ever wakes up like that while you're brushing your teeth? I want to suffer today. You ever have a morning like that where you think like that? No, because unless you're crazy, I don't think you would think like that. But how many of you suffer on the regular? Huh? Do you bring that upon yourself? If you were actually in control of the outcome, would you bring suffering to yourself? No, but suffering is coming, yes? How much is suffering coming? Daily, on the regular. That itself is evidence that the environment is beyond my control. And yet we're thinking we control the environment, we control the outcome. This is the foolishness. So Krishna says this is all due to egotism, because everything in this world is happening by material forces, and the self is existing separate from that world because he is different from matter. This is a little bit of a complicated subject matter, so Krishna will reconcile these things later on. But just as a general point, whatever is happening in this material world is taking place by material forces, and the soul is existing separate from that. So if he thinks that he can do anything and control the outcome in any way, Krishna says this is the result of foolishness. And the next verse is very nice also. It continues the same idea here. Tattavit tu mahabhaho guna karma vibhagayo guna guneshu vartanta iti matva nasajate. So the tattavit means the persons who know this truth. What truth? Guna karma vibhagayo. They know about the divisions of guna and karma. So the division of gunas means the three modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And the divisions of karma are those activities that are informed by those different gunas, right? So sometimes, like here in New York, you see all the gunas are at play very actively, especially the lower ones. So sometimes you see people talking to themselves regularly, actually, especially here in the East Village. And I saw this one time in the train. One guy just started screaming out loud, talking to himself. So you can understand that what guna is this? Tamagun. Tamagun. Yes, tamagun. And the tamagun is causing tamasic karma, right? So guna karma vibhagayo, the tattva, one who knows this tattva, he understands that the guna is tamas, and the karma is also matching the guna. It is also tamas in this example that I'm giving. Then it says here, guna guneshu vartanta. He sees that it is just gunas interacting with gunas. Because all these bodies are products of the gunas of nature, the modes of nature. So, and the objects that you're engaging with, they're also products of the modes of nature, right? So now I'm typing on the computer. I'm not typing, but I'm pretend typing on the computer. So this body is part of the gunas, and this computer is also part of the gunas. So the enlightened person, he can see that gunas are just interacting with gunas, but his actual self is different from this. He's just observing that. Gunas are just interacting with gunas. Iti matva, thinking this way, nasajate, he does not become attached or preoccupied with this world. So back to my train example, I saw this over the summer where this one guy was started screaming and talking to himself kind of violently on the train. And the girl sitting, there was one girl sitting next to him, very small girl, white girl. She was sitting, and she was just on her phone, like she was completely undisturbed. I was quite impressed at the level of impersonalism in the city, because I was sitting on the opposite side of the train, and he started going off, and I was just like, I stood up, I got on the edge of the, as soon as the doors open, I'm getting off. I'm getting to another car, get to safety. And this girl, she was sitting right in the car, yeah, and she was just, and I was actually quite impressed. She's deeply impersonal. But as glorification in this context, she was like the sage in this example. She just, gunas are interacting with gunas, so she is not at all disturbed about the situation. It's just the gunas interacting with the gunas. So why should we become disturbed? So I'm an example of the opposite party because I identify with the gunas. So I was getting very disturbed. I was like, this guy is crazy fellow. Let me get off the train. But she was no disturbance. Of course, I doubt she was an enlightened yogi. But just to give it a sense of the example, one who is enlightened sees that this is just a world of gunas interacting with the gunas. And therefore, why I should become attached or preoccupied with what's taking place in the world of gunas? My actual existence is separate from this. It's a side point, but it made me think of a verse from a later Krishna speaking to another devotee of his Uddhava, where he quotes these verses, Paraswabhava karmani, na prashanktin nagarhaya, this Vishram ekatma karmpashram pakrita purushena cha. So Krishna is saying, it's actually related, but it's a little bit of a side point. Krishna says that one should not praise or criticize the swabhava, or the swabhava means like personality, or activities of others. Very difficult living in New York. You see a lot of crazy things, so very difficult. Don't praise, don't criticize the personalities or activities of others. They give you an example of the challenge. The challenge of trying to follow an instruction like this. One person came to our center. So devotees, we keep sika. Many devotees, we shave the head and we keep one tuft of hair called sika on the back. So one person came to our Chicago temple. He also shaved the head, but he kept the sika on the side. So Krishna is saying, don't praise, don't criticize the personality and activities of others. So you could imagine the challenge of following an instruction like this. He came into the temple with the sika on the side. So he asked that time the temple president if he could move into the temple. So the temple president said no. And he said, why not? And the president said, I don't have to give you an answer. The Zero president didn't praise or criticize, but he said, you cannot stay here. Krishna says, don't praise or criticize the swabhava or karma of others. Vishrame katmakam pashram pakriti purushena char. You should simply see the world as the gunas and the souls entangled in those gunas, all based on one absolute reality. Just in relationship to what the point we're making, the soul is different, and the gunas are interacting with gunas. You should simply see it as that. This is the person who is tapped of it. Krishna goes on to say to Uddhava similar. Paraswa bhava karmani ya prashamsati nindati. I like this verse a lot. Sa ashubhrishate swarta asati abhiniveshata. If one indulges in praising or criticizing the swabhava or karma of others, then sa ashubhrishate swarta. He very quickly becomes deviated from swarta, from real self-interest. How? Asati abhiniveshata, by becoming absorbed in asat, that which is actually not essential. As we see, especially nowadays, you see people, they love criticizing Donald Trump. Asati abhiniveshata, very popular one. Criticizing Trump, criticizing, arguing about different social issues that's very tempting, race and gender and sexuality and this and that. So Krishna says in this way, you very quickly become deviated from actual swa-artha, the development of self-realization. How? Asati abhinivesha, by becoming absorbed in that which is not essential, asat. So in a similar way, Krishna is saying here, back to 328, the Tattvavid, he knows about the divisions of gunas and that karmas that are happening and formed by those gunas. And he simply sees the world as gunas interacting with gunas, but the self is actually separate from that. So with this knowledge, he is able to look at the world as a witness, as a detached witness, instead of as a participant identifying with the avatar of this material body, right? This is my Jai Jagannath avatar, right? You have the Daniel avatar, and you have this avatar and that avatar. So we're participating by identifying with the avatar in this virtual world. But the Tattvavid, he's just seeing himself as a witness. He's a dispassionate witness of the gunas interacting with the gunas. In this way, he's able to work with detachment. So this is the knowledge that informs his ability to work with. This is what Krishna is saying here. And the next verse, and then you can ask your question. I see you have a question there. In the next verse, Krishna makes a nice point here, summarizing kind of this point. Pakriter guna samudha sajante guna karmasu. So those who are sambuddha, they're bewildered comprehensively. Samyak mudha, complete fool, bewildered, comprehensively bewildered. Everything about them is bewildered. They're bewildered by what? By the gunas of Prakriti. They think I am this body, and the things that are happening to this body, they think are happening to themselves. They're completely bewildered. Sajante guna karmasu, they become attached to guna and karma. A certain, either guna means sattva, they're attached to their virtue. That's a real popular one today. And they're very much attached to their virtue. Or they're attached to their passion. Or they're attached to their ignorance. People do ignorant things and they're attached to that. For example, very popular now amongst the youth at least is being shady. That's a very being shady. What are other ways of saying this? Spilling the tea. Different ways of, and that is ignorant activity, but we are attached to that. We feel empowered being shady. You look on Facebook, you just want to say something just absolutely crazy and disrespectful, like, yeah, I said this, yeah. So they're attached. Sajante guna karmasu. Tat akrishna vido madan. These persons with a krishna vido, they don't have proper knowledge. Madan, they're lazy and developing proper knowledge, proper civilization. Krishna says, Krishna ve navichalaya, those who have proper knowledge, as we just heard about, navichalaya, they should not try to agitate these people. They continue to work with detachment. They should not try to agitate those who are attached to the world of gunas and acting foolishly because of it. It's just interesting because it is in this purport where Prabhupada says this. I'll read it. Men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness. And in this context, it means doing the work in the world with a spirit of detachment in context. And therefore, Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. That's like trying to talk to a crazy person. Just simply waste valuable time. Sometimes crazy person is there, and you try to explain Bhagavad-Gita to them. That is not very prudent. Not very wise. It's just wasting time. They're a crazy person. So Krishna is saying these persons who act with attachment to the body and the things, they're actually like crazy people. So here you should not disturb them. That's what Prabhupada is saying. This is Krishna's instruction here. But then Prabhupada goes on to say this. But the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord. Because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risk. Because if you talk to a crazy person, it's risky, isn't it? It's risky if you talk to a crazy person. You don't know what's going to happen, how they're going to react. In this whole material world, is everyone crazy. Understand why they're crazy? Why are they crazy? Attachment. Their attachment. Why they attach?
False ego.
False ego, yes. And what is that ego? I am this body. I am this body. That means crazy person. So as you meet someone, they say, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm this race. I'm this gender. I'm this sexuality. Immediately you've understood, oh, crazy person. A crazy person. That is our philosophy. There's a philosophy of Bhagavad-Gita.
So you define a crazy person as
Bewildered by false ego, identifying with body.
so then we're all crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Crazy person. So this craziness should be given up. That is a Christian's encouragement in this section. Ahankara vimudama. You should give up this ahankara and become situated in your actual self-identity. Just like if I am identifying with Chicago Bulls and they lose the game, and I think that I have lost, and I think, what is the purpose of my existence? Then I am a crazy person, isn't it? Actually, your life is going on. They have no impact on your life. They don't even care about you. They don't even know you exist. You're not getting any money from that, nothing. But then you're thinking, I don't know if I can live on. That means you are a crazy person. So yeah, that's basically that.
I have a friend who works in a psychiatric ward
Jai.
at a Chapman. So very regularly people are like, they become like, they'll say like, I am the president of the United States.
Jai.
And they're completely serious about it.
Wow.
Completely convinced that it's actually true.
Mm. So that is craziness within crazy.
Right. On that note, I
Yeah.
think I hate to ruin like the laughter in the room, but I feel like we should be more sensitive to that word because there are people with actual mental illness who cannot function the way we do. We all
Yes, but we're not talking about them.
stolen.
We're not talking about them.
When we use that word crazy, it's an implication for something deeper. So I think there should be some sort of distinction between like, yeah, we're all a little nuts. We ended up here for a reason. We chose to take a body because we wanted to experience the world, right? But then there's like, yeah, I'm experiencing the world, but I've accumulated some karma within lifetimes that I'm now in this body, and I don't even actually have a sense of what reality is.
Yeah, we're not talking about these people. I'm talking about crazy in a generic category. I've already defined it. Crazy means I think I am this body. So I already made it clear. Everyone's clear. That is what I mean by crazy. I'm not talking about someone with mental illness. That's another thing. That is within the category of crazy. There are different varieties of crazy. Just like my brother, I remember one time, I shared this many times. I was upset about something. So I got into the car and I slammed the door. We were on our way to a college program. So I slammed the door and I said, people are crazy. Probably talking about some devotee in the temple or something. My brother turned around and said, yes, some in the mode of goodness, some in the mode of passion, and some in the mode of ignorance. And I started laughing. I was like, what an enlightened answer you've just given. So some people are crazy in the mode of goodness. Some people are crazy in the mode of passion. Some people are crazy in the mode of ignorance. But all are crazy. If you think I am this body, then you are crazy. That is what we mean by crazy here. We're not talking about mental illness. We're talking about ahankara, avidya, these spiritual principles.
So the question that I had, I wanted to know was, is it like recommended that you don't have opinions? If you're saying that don't comment about some political issue or association with respect to, let's say, Me Too or the racism that's going on, commenting about that and expressing what you feel about it, that I understand you're associating with a group of people. But according to Krishna consciousness, is it recommended that you should not have opinions?
No, we have many opinions.
I would imagine so.
But our opinions are informed by what Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita. So our opinions are not independent of what Krishna says in the Gita. So that is the difficulty that people have here. They don't want to quote Bhagavad-Gita. Of course, we're talking about, let's say, our devotees.
Yes.
So we're devotees of Krishna. So everyone has an opinion.
Yeah.
So Krishna says in the Gita about these opinions also. Icha dvesha samutena dvanda mohena bharata. Sarva bhutani samoham sarga yanti panantapa. He talks about these opinions here in this particular verse, 727 Gita. He says, everyone in this world is born completely deluded. Sambuddha or Samoham. Samoham means an illusion. Ahankar, same idea here. Bewildered by false ego. Bewildered by what? The duality of the delusion of duality. Icha dvesha samutena, by the imprints or impressions in their mind of attachment and aversion. Those are opinions. I like this. I don't like this. I like this. I don't like this. So we have so many of those from countless lifetimes. And Krishna's opinion, these are all deluding us by causing a deeper sense of intimacy with the material world, which we're different from. So you could have an opinion. We definitely say have an opinion, but our opinion should be informed by Krishna, what he says in the Bhagavad-Gita. Of course, you don't have to have Krishna's opinion. That is not, you're not obliged to have his opinion. But if you have another opinion, then you continue in the cycle of birth and death. Because raga, dvesha, these are the two main factors that causes us to bind ourselves to the material nature. I like this, I don't like that. And what do we like? All the things that are not good for us. And what do we don't like? All the things that are good for us. Usually, especially in terms of the spiritual format. So we have opinions, but our opinions should be informed by Bhagavad-Gita. Krishna also says in Gita later on in chapter 16, Tasma Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Akarya Vyavasita. He says, let the Shastra, scripture, be the Pramanam, the evidence by which we understand what is to be done, what is not to be done. And opinion is also a type of action. What opinion is to be formed? What is opinion to be rejected? Then let the sacred text be the evidence by which you understand that. So someone rejects the sacred texts or doesn't bother to learn it or hear it, and they have their own opinion. That is going on. That is a material world.
That answers my question. The second question I had was about criticizing and praising.
Praising, yes.
You mentioned that Krishna consciousness recommends that you should not do either. But from the readings, I'm addicted to self-help books, and one of the things that's recommended for leaders is that when you have a team, criticizing usually doesn't work. What you need to do is praise somebody else who's his or her peer, and the other person who is smart enough to recognize that these are the things that are appreciated. So if I do not appreciate there or praise there, that kind of contradicts what Krishna consciousness says.
I'm sure there's many things that contradict what Krishna said.
But this was one, and I wanted to know what.
So you should be sensitive to the context that Krishna's talking about. I think the easiest way to think about this is you can think of things in terms of the conventional world, and then things in terms of the like kind of trans-conventional world or the spiritual. So conventionally, we have our ways of needing to deal conventionally. And what I feel the example you're giving is something that how you should deal in a conventional situation for inspiring your team and all of that. But Krishna is also saying, but in the background, you should also understand that it's just gunas interacting with gunas. So you have to be able to keep that perspective in mind. So what happens in the material world where people are devoid of spiritual knowledge, so if someone praises you, devoid of spiritual knowledge, and it's not uncommon that the same person who praised you is the first person to hang you if you make some mistake, isn't it? I've seen that in my own personal life also. The same persons who will glorify you, you're amazing, this, that, but somehow I use this language, you got caught with your hand in the cookie jar, which means you were doing something naughty that you wasn't supposed to, and you got caught. Then the same persons who praise you hang you, write many articles about you as if you did nothing to help them in their life. That means, so in both cases, they're under material forces, right? So there's some material force that inspires the praise. There's some material force that inspires they're like waves in the ocean. So the encouragement here is to go deep into the ocean where the waves don't make disturbance. So as long as people are on the wave level, the surface level, then they're disturbed by the waves. And sometimes the wave is a praise. Sometimes the wave is a criticism. Right, but here Krishna is saying, go deeper than that, just at surface level. And you can, of course, also the context is the knowledge of a kind of a Jnani, enlightened. This is not exactly a devotee necessarily, but someone who just has Gyan of the situation of the world and the souls in this world. So they understand these are gunas that are moving everyone in this world. And so if someone praises them, they will receive it, especially we'll hear this later in Gita, kind of neutrally. Oh, I didn't deserve that. My karma is now they're praising me. Then if some criticism comes, they also don't get worked up about that. Someone is moving by this wave, now some criticism. That is also my karma. So they can remain neutral. Otherwise, some waves are coming you this way, then you're also getting sucked up in the whirlpool of the waves. And both continue in the cycle of birth and death. So, of course, the knowledge of the Gita is a little bit different from self-help in terms of its final objective. Not a little bit different, a lot. And the objective is getting out of the cycle of samsara. So in order to do that, you have to keep the perspective that this world is made of gunas, and the gunas are interacting with gunas, and the self is different from that. So that's what the Krishna is trying to help us keep that perspective. Now, when it comes to practical activity, you may have to act conventionally, and I'm sure if you have this knowledge, you'll also have the intuition of how you need to behave in a conventional situation. But otherwise, this knowledge should always be there in the background.
And Krishna has also given in 17:15 austerity of speech.
Yes.
That austerity of speech will be helpful in this.
The austerity of speech.
Yes.
That is in chapter
17:15.
17:15. Yes,
I was going to say that in terms of that we're all crazy in the sense.
not in a sense.
But the difference is that we have
On the
Krishna
big term vakya.
and we have the Bhagavad-Gita to guide us out of the so-called false ego.
Yes.
And I thought that might be important.
Yes. Again, don't think of crazy in terms of whatever definition you're thinking of in your head. I define crazy clearly. Crazy means what? I'm this body. That is how we defined it. So in order, when any presentation is given, the speaker often has to define his terms. Otherwise, confusion occurs because we have our own definitions of things in our own head. So sometimes the speaker says you should be compassionate. And in his head, he has one idea, and in our head, we have another idea. So he says, by compassion, I mean this. So then he goes on to write his paper after that. And you have to keep his definition in mind so you can get clarity about the context of which he's speaking. So crazy here means, I think I'm this body, because the soul is different from this body.
Yes, I understand.
So that, so we are crazy, is it not?
We have Krishna.
Yeah, we have Krishna to guide us out of this crazy house.
Krishna to the Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes.
Out of the craziness.
Yes.
And that's why we're blessed.
Yes, indeed. We're very fortunate to.
So, I have a question that's kind of connected because I had the exact same question about the duality of praise and criticism.
Yes.
I've noticed in Krishna consciousness that there is a lot of praising going on, and I think that kind of keeps people uplifted, it keeps people inspired, it keeps people connected.
Yes.
And I've even heard elders say, like, there's a real sweetness in consistently praising each other and glorifying each other, and that's how that's Krishna actually loves to see that. So when you're speaking about this verse specifically, again, it's a nuanced context in the sense of try to remain past the duality, but also stay connected to the fact that Krishna loves seeing us glorify each other. He loves seeing us.
So yeah, those are two different contexts. So here the context is the enlightened person. This is not necessarily an enlightened person with bhakti. And you're speaking about another context with bhakti. So it's a slightly different application. So there are different paths Krishna speaks here. We're hearing about karma yoga now, then Jnana yoga. Then later on, Krishna will talk about bhakti yoga also. So there are a little bit different contexts there. But even this sort of understanding, of course, is subsumed within bhakti. So that means that when they praise, their praise isn't superficial. It's not just based on, some wave of the guna coming in. Oh yeah, I like you. So like someone's like, yeah, I love my dog. I love my iPhone. I love that movie. I love chocolate. Something like superficial like that. When they praise, that means it's coming from a very deep place because they're not just being moved by gunas to praise you. Similarly, they're not just being moved by gunas to criticize you. There's just as people who don't have this type of knowledge, their praise may be shallow. Their criticism is also shallow. We usually get so bent out of shape when people criticize it, but that is also shallow. It's not actually personal because they're just being moved by these material forces. That's what Krishna is saying here. So the devotee, if he praises or sometimes he offers strong words also, it is coming from a deep place because this is not within its understanding. But in bhakti, there's a slightly different element of practice there. So there will be praise more than you'll find in the community of the Gyanis and the Yogis, where they're more callous towards everything. That is their practice. Okay, I want to go a little bit further. I only have 5 minutes, so I'll just do the best I can in the little 5 minutes that I have left. There won't be any time for the questionnaire that I have prepared, but we can do it on Wednesday. So in verse number 30, Krishna speaks about himself again. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya dhyatma chaitasa nirashya nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatadjara. So he says all activities should be given unto him. Earlier in 261, that's the first place where Krishna spoke about himself. So he spoke about himself in the context of a person becoming successful and controlling their senses and achieving enlightenment. So here, in the context of the knowledge of the karma yogi, he also speaks about himself. How is he able to give up this sense that I have to control the outcome? I'm attached to it and I have to control it. By being able to I'm looking for a different word than offer, ascribe all activities he's doing to the Supreme Lord. Whatever he's doing, the fruits that are coming from him doing, this is only for the Supreme Lord. And that way he also gives up the sense that I'm an independent agent and everything depends upon me in order to have the outcome. Rather, it is the Supreme Lord who is the actual controller and who actually provides the outcome. This is a very important element of the knowledge of a karma yogi also. Otherwise, without this God point, then it's very easy to get into that I have to control the environment. But once you understand God is the controller, then it's very easy to ascribe all successes and even failures that is the Supreme Lord's doing, if he so desires. And that is a very important part of becoming a little bit detached again, or aloof, or having dispassionate activity. Otherwise, it's not possible. Actually, without this element, it's probably not possible to be that dispassionate. But if you have God, then you see, by the arrangement of God, I'm getting this result. By the arrangement of God, I'm getting that result. And that way, that can make you a little bit aloof. So this is also part of his knowledge. Adhyatma Chaitasa means his consciousness is fixed in himself. Nirashya nirmamo bhutva. He is without desire, because again, he's not doing work for getting things, but he's detached. He's without the feeling of possessiveness. So this person, Krishna says, you should vikatadjvara, without the fever, you should fight. I don't know what is meant by this fever. Vikatadjvara. No, I haven't seen any commentary that comment on what is this fever. Maybe the fever of material enjoyment without the fever. Because when you have desires, that creates a fever. Sometimes Prabhupada also talks about we're increasing the fever of material enjoyment. And it's increased to 107 degrees in the form of an atom bomb. So, you know, in Isha Upanishad, it says something like this, right? You remember? Anyway, without the fever, one should fight.
He turns lethargy.
Yes, free from lethargy. So don't be lazy. Don't tell me go. Fight. Okay, last few verses here, y'all. Stick with me. So in verse 31 and 32, Krishna then speaks of those who follow this knowledge and what is the result, and those who don't follow this knowledge and what is the result for them. He talks about these two persons. First, those who follow this knowledge. I'll just read the verses. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage or fruit of actions. So if you follow this with faith and without envy, what he's just taught, then you can become free from karmic bondage. All right? And what if you don't follow this? What if you don't like this knowledge is too harsh or whatever? So then, Krishna mentions that also. But those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. That is his opinion. So someone may say, well, aren't people afraid of this? Like if they hear this, then won't they follow? So in verse 33, this is actually one of my favorite verses. If you hear it like this, you'll be bereft, be fooled, all your endeavors will be ruined, then you'll become concerned, isn't it? I don't want all my endeavors to be ruined. That's harsh. So won't that make you follow? Would that make you follow? Just like in Christianity, well, maybe you shouldn't call them out like this, but in Christianity, they say if you don't follow this, you go to hell. So did that make people follow very nicely? Suppose you heard like this: if you don't follow this Bhagavad-Gita, you go to hell. Then you'll feel very inspired to follow nicely. Even if you were afraid of, even if you believed me, still you break the rules, isn't it? Sometimes you're told not to do something, and you also know that that something is not good for you, and still you break the rules, isn't it? Just like Mama said, don't go in the cookie jar. And you're like, yeah, I won't go in the cookie jar. And then she goes upstairs, closes the door, and you wait for that light to go off underneath the door. You wait for the light to, and then you look at the light underneath the door, it goes off. And then you sneak in the kitchen. You're like, turn it off. So that was a close one. Even you break the rule, even though you know the consequences, still you break the rule, isn't it? Why is that? Why is this? So Krishna mentions in 333 why this happens. One of my favorite verses. Sadrishnam chishate swasya pakrite ganavanapi. Ganavanapi, even for a person of knowledge. Swadrishnam chishate swasya pakriti. They act according to the nature that has been given to them by Prakriti. Whatever nature you have by Prakriti, you act according to that nature. So even if you hear so many rules saying you should not do something, you should not. But if you have that nature, you will do it. That tendency will be strong in you to do that because of the nature. Like I'm thinking specifically Kaliya. You know the pastime of Kaliya? Krishna chastises Kaliya. So after he gives Kaliya that nice dance lesson, it was dance lesson for Kaliya. It was a little painful. But he learned a good lesson. It was a good lesson. So his wives offered so many beautiful prayers. And then after they offer prayers, Kali himself offers a prayer. And one of his first prayers was one of my favorite prayers. This section is just 4 verses. But the first of the 4, I'm not mentioning all of them. Vayam kala soho patya tamasa dirgamannava. He says, Krishna, by birth, soho patya, we snakes by birth are tamasa, ignorant, and dirgamannava, like always enraged and envious. By birth, like this. This is our nature. Swabhava dusta jonata. Oh Lord, it is very difficult to give up this swabhav. Very difficult. It's next swabhav, so we act like this. Loka nam yada sagraha, by which one identifies with a sab. Very difficult. Just like I'm not a man, according to Bhagavad-Gita. It's very difficult to understand. I'm a man. I identify as a man. I use the pronouns he, him, and his. Yes. It's very difficult. I cannot do it because the identity is very strong like this. And you identify as woman, I take it. You identify as woman? You identify as woman? Or most days. Sometimes we switch also. That happens also nowadays. Also, there's a lot of switch it up, and now they have non-binary category and all these things. There's so many things. But whatever that swabhava is there, you cannot give it up. It is there, and you will act according to that nature, even if you don't want to. So even though Krishna says this will be the negative result if you don't follow this, still people don't follow this because their nature does not allow them. He's saying this thing here. Prakritim yanti bhutani negraha kim karishyati. All souls follow the nature that they've gotten by Prakriti, even the learned persons. Negraha kim karishyati. Prabhupada translated this. What can repression accomplish? Just like sometimes you say, I'll not do. I always give this example with the cheesecake. And someone comes and leaves a cheesecake right there and says, don't eat this. This is for so-and-so. I'll be back in 2 hours. But it happens to be the cheesecake that you really like. It's like your favorite flavor. So it's just sitting there and it's just like, you're repressing it. But the scent is coming. Actually, the fragrance all of a sudden feels much more strong than it normally feels. Then just looking at it, and then it's like, okay, let me do some work. And then eventually you eat the cake. Your friend comes back, you're like, yeah, I'm sorry, man. I'll buy you another one. Where you get it from? Whole Foods? Why do you think? Because your nature forced you to eat. So what can repression accomplish? So then Arjuna may say, well, if this is the case, then how can anyone follow anything then? If everyone's just following their nature, what is the use of the instructions of Bhagavad-Gita? If everyone's just following it, then there's no use. So the next verse is coming. Yes, it is true. For those whose natures are very much, and the Acharyas use this language, very much evil. Kind of a strong word. Very much polluted. Then for them, there's practically no hope to even follow anything. They're just carried away by their natures. And just like now, you go outside, you try to get spiritual knowledge also, but so many right now are just so much carried by their nature. Even they may want to do something spiritual, they can't right now because their nature is just pulling them towards whatever it's pulling them towards. But there are others like us. Us meaning we're trying to be a little spiritual. We're like spiritual. We're spiritual. We're trying to be spiritual and we're trying to follow something. This is my path. Spiritual people, they have a very unique way of speaking. I'm spiritual. Like have this sweet whisper and this is my path. So then for these people who are spiritual, trying to follow something, Indriyas sarte raga dvesha vyavastito tayor navashamagachet tau hasya paripatina. That's a very nice verse. So Krishna says, raga dvesha vyavastito, this raga and dvesha, I like this, I don't like this. It is fixed in your senses. Actually, it's not only fixed in your senses, it's also fixed in the sense objects. All right, so you are attached to certain objects and you are not attached to other objects, or you hate other objects. I like this, I don't like this. And that's just fixed in your nature. And the tendency is to follow that only. Now, the examples the Acharyas give are very interesting. Raga, Acharyas say raga means you're attached to giving gifts to other people's wives and trying to court them. That's the example given by almost all of our Acharyas give this example. Raga, I'm attached to this. That is that person's wife. Let me talk to her. What type of craziness? There's some attachment. Attachment here means the idea comes up in your mind. The idea comes, and you are detached from associating with sadhus. Oh, he's a sadhu, I get out of here. Or sometimes a sadhu is coming, you sit way in the back. Hopefully they don't see me, I'll come and, I want to be a good devotee, be a good, good member of the community. But you sit way in the back so the sadhu doesn't see you, doesn't talk to you. You're detached from that, isn't it? Attached to talking to other people's wives or girlfriends, as it were. Partners. Partners is a proper word now. And you are detached from associating with sadhus. Soon as there's pravachan, Prabhuji, I don't have any time. One concert comes into town, $500 a ticket, you're the first one in line. Well, I thought you didn't have any time. Well, a little time opened up. So this is how raga dvesha works in this world. That which is good for our spiritual advancement, dvesha, I don't like that. That which is not good for us, raga, is very nice, isn't it? So this is fixing our senses, is fixing the objects of this world also. Tayor navasham agachet, one should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion. Tauhasya paripatina, it is a stumbling block on the path of self-realization. So for persons who are not completely carried away by their nature, then they have to practice not just following their attachments and aversions, but following their path. Whatever your path is. If your path is yoga, your path is Gyan, your path is bhakti, then you follow your path. But what is the challenge of following your path? Raga and dvesha, that is a challenge, isn't it? In my path, I'm attached to so many things that are not good for my path, isn't it? You attach to anything not good for the path? You attach to anything not good for the path?
Not anything that comes back.
Wow, very nice. What about you? Yeah. They're quiet. Yeah, I got a few. So don't come under the control of this attachment and aversion, but you follow your path. And the last verse of the second, and I'm sorry because there was a lot of inner engagement today, so I'm going longer than I normally do because I like to finish the passage. So to keep the ball going, I'm trying to keep it, go passage by passage. Last point here. So you follow your path. Krishna said, it is better to do your duty, even though imperfectly, than to do someone else's duty perfectly in your estimation. Shreya swadharma viguna paradharma swa anushtita. So sometimes you think this dharma is too hard. Let me do this one, and it's easier. I'm also good at this one. Krishna says, no, it is better to do your own duty, follow your path, even though you have some difficulty or imperfectly. That is better, Shreya, that is better, far better than doing some other path, paradharma, some other dharma, even though imperfectly. Swadharma nidanam Shreya paradharma bhayavaha. If you do your swadharma, he says destruction and the performance of your swadharma is far better than so-called success in doing some other dharma. Paradharma bhayavaha means there is great danger in following someone else's dharma. Anyway, I'm not having so much time to explain all the intricacies of the verse, but the idea here is that in Vedic culture, there were prescribed duties according to your psychology. Krishna will talk about this coming up in chapter 4. Chatur Varnya Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhakasha. So when you have a certain psychology, you are obliged to a certain level of activities, your responsibility. Like Arjuna is a warrior, so he's expected to do warrior activities. So if he tries to act like a brahmana, that is a transgression of the injunction that is meant for him. And therefore, you not only destroy your own life, but you also set a bad example by being irresponsible. Like, for example, if a police is there, someone is being attacked, and you call the police. And at that time, the police says, I want to become meditator. Right at that time. Then that is irresponsible. He can be punished for that also. So it is better to do your duty, even though imperfectly, even though you're destroyed in that. Why? And this is a point that is made by our acharyas, especially Prabhupada, because the Shastra is telling like this for you. Because Shastra enjoins for you to do this, that is far better to follow the Shastra and set that example, even if you meet with destruction, than to follow someone else's dharma perfectly. Of course, there will be a higher injunction that comes later on when Krishna says Sarva Dharma Parityagya and all these things. That is another thing, a categorically different thing. But here he's making the point that because Shastra is advised in this way, that it is, you should follow the Shastra, the injunctions that are meant for you as directed by the scripture. Sacred texts obviously had a very strong role in the lives of people in this age. A role that we don't see so prominent in the lives of people today. So that is the passage. I did the best I could with the time. I thank you all for the high level of engagement and interaction today. Are there any final comments or questions before we close out this discussion? Yes.
How do you recognize what your dharma is?
Yeah, the classic question.
It is classic, but
No, it's the classic because it's asked all the time, and I have no idea. Of course, in older cultures, it was I always say this point, I'm sticking to my guns on this. The reason it was easier in older Vedic culture is because, I like to say it like this because it sounds really weird, is that they used to breed humanity. So in other words, as Krishna said, there are Brahmanas, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, format is there. These are called as Varnas. Varna means occupational duty, but the word Varna also means color. It basically means that the psychology is a certain color. Right? So let's say Brahmana is yellow color. So Brahmanas used to mate with other yellows. They didn't mate with a red or a blue or an orange. Brahmanas would mate with Brahmanas, Kshatriyas would mate with Kshatriyas. So the children that came out of that union were also, for the most part, yellow. Sometimes there were anomalies, but for the most part, they would come out the same color. So then the family they live in, the color in their own mind, the family they live in, and the environment they grew up in made it clear what was their dharma. It was self-evident. My father is a teacher. I also have a propensity to teach. Everyone around me is also teachers, so I'm probably going to be a teacher. Very simple, right? So in the Gita, it's presented as a problem in the first chapter. This thing is called Varna Sankara, which means a mixture of Varna. So this is considered, at least for Arjuna, and it seems like a generic understanding of the time, that Varna Sankara causes a social disintegration because the children produced from such union become confused. Neither they're in this Varna, neither in that Varna, so they don't know what is my duty. And so they kind of create their own little niche cultures because they don't fit fully in this one nor that one. They create their own thing. And they start to disregard all the duties and rituals of the dominant culture of the time. And according to Arjuna, such kids bring forth hell in the world. So my understanding at the present moment and suggestion is that it's very hard to figure this out in Kali Yuga because many of us are the products of generations and generations and generations of mixing of Varnas. And so there's a lot of confusion going on internally. And then you come to live in a place like New York, and that doesn't help at all. It's quite confusing. And so someone tries to figure out what am I to do? And then you ask someone else, what am I to do? Don't ask me. I'm crazy. I'm also got so much stuff going on inside. I cannot tell what is my nature. But luckily, the nature of the soul is constant. It doesn't shift around like the nature of the body. The nature of the soul is Jivera Sarupoy Krishnera Nityadas, to be a servant of Krishna. And that nature can be satisfied by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare. So good luck figuring out your nature if you haven't already. And if you have or you haven't, this nature is always there. The nature of the soul to chant Hare Krishna and worship God.
To the Lord with all your heart.
Yeah, no.
Eventually, I just got finished reading Journey Within, and that's what he did. The Swami, I can't think of his name right now, but what he did, it was just a constant prayer to the Lord to show him what was his dharma. And eventually, of course, he got to the Hare Krishna Bhakti Yoga, and that's how he got it.
Nice.
So he tried everything: Islam, Christianity, Judaism. He was Jewish himself.
No.
So I just
Pray, whatever works.
Pay attention to what lights you up.
Vasudev, you want to say something? So.
Yeah, like we put a lot of emphasis sometimes on like what is my Swadharma,
Yes.
but it's not so important in a way. What's much more important is, especially this age, because it's so confused. It's, as you also said, it's our Swadharma of the soul, to serve Krishna. Because we can be we can spend our whole lives figuring out our Swadharma.
Right.
And not really progressing so much spiritually. So therefore, and basically, we do what we are inclined to do. Yeah. I'm not going to wind up a police officer. This is not going to happen. I'm just basically going to do what I'm inclined to do. So you just do something which you're inclined to do. And try to be satisfied with it. Don't change it all the time. Try to be satisfied with it and focus on what's really, what is your real Swadharma of the Atma of the soul, which is Bhakti. So that tells a lot. Otherwise, we can spend years and years and years. That's why this breathing system, you waste a lot. It's like, it's clear. You set up, and now you can get to your real business, which is figure out your real Swadharma, the Swadharma of the soul.
Very nice. Thank you. Very good. Okay, Hari Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. Hare Krishna. Namaste.
There was just so random to have a conversation in the temple room. I didn't know there was a lecture going on.